It's the Pittsburgh Penguins and the St. Louis Blues. One team not going to be in the postseason this year. The other is going to be in the postseason this year. Welcome to episode 6 of season number 5 of Sports for Beginners, the podcast, and welcome to another Penguins post-game season edition of Sports for Beginners. It's another all-audio program, and it starts right now. Pens and the Blues, let's get started.
Welcome to Sports for Beginners. This is the show where I cover the Pittsburgh Penguins, Toronto Blue Jays, and take you on a journey through the world of sports. From the fans' perspective, here is your host, Scott McGregor. Let's have some fun.
Hello everybody, and welcome into episode 6 of season 5 of Sports for Beginners. My name is Scott McGregor. I am the lovely host of the program, welcoming also our listeners on the ice and behind the benches, as both this episode and the previous episode yet to be brought out, but both will be brought out before the Penguins face the Philadelphia Flyers in the 8th playoff meeting in the Battle of Pennsylvania history. Yep, that's right. It's the 8th Battle of Pennsylvania in playoff history between the Philadelphia Flyers and the Pittsburgh Penguins. But we'll talk about that before the show is up. Quick overview of our program before we get into our coaches for this matchup and our records at the Olympic winter break and coming in to this game for St. Louis and Pittsburgh. This will be the 8th meeting in the postseason between the Philadelphia Flyers and the Pittsburgh Penguins when the two teams meet this weekend. As for this game, this is the final regular season game of the season for the Pittsburgh Penguins and head coach Dan Muse. It is also the second last game for the St. Louis Blues and head coach Jim Montgomery. Jim Montgomery and Dan Muse are the head coaches of the St. Louis Blues and the Pittsburgh Penguins. As we go through the head coaching, which we've just done now, Penguins and Flyers, and of course we will continue that in full later on in the show. And of course we did that for the Blues just now. This is the 81st game of the season for the St. Louis Blues. It is also game 82 of the 2025-2026 regular season for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And the Penguins, by the way, are now done. The postseason hasn't begun yet. It begins in the weekend. But it is the last time they will play the St. Louis Blues. And after our first commercial break, we will get right down to business, breaking down the penalty takers, first period, third period, and second period scoring, and of course the third period as well. And we will also break down the game totals. We will also move from the game totals to our 3 stars of the game. And barring the break that will be after the 3 stars of the game, we will touch on our shake of the game, which is our player of the game segment. We will also touch on our game puck of the game, which will be awarded to both the St. Louis Blues and the Pittsburgh Penguins in this episode of the program. The game puck of the game will follow our player of the game segment we call the shake of the game. And of course, we are going to spend some time going over the Wednesday slate of games, I should say the Tuesday slate of games, through the scoreboard. That will be a little bit later. And before the show is up, as we get you ready at that point for the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Philadelphia Flyers in round 1 of the 2026 Stanley Cup playoffs, we will let you know who else is competing in this year's 2026 Stanley Cup playoffs. That coming up later. Alright folks, let's not waste any more time and get to our records. Now that the head coaching is done out of the way, let's get down to our records. And during this time, we will also look at the schedule, starting off with the Pittsburgh Penguins. They have lost all 3 of their last 3 games, including losing back-to-back games against division rivals, the Washington Capitals. Here are my recap of those games in a double dose on the previous episode of Season 5, which will drop before this episode drops into your favorite podcatcher. That is on episode 5 of Season 5. On episode 6, we are talking St. Louis Blues, but the Penguins had also opened up the month of April with a 6-3 loss to the Florida Panthers. I should say, no, not Florida, the Tampa Bay Lightning. They beat Florida in back-to-back home games, 9-4 on April 4th, and 5-2 on April 5th, before winning 2 over division rival New Jersey Devils in Newark, New Jersey on April 9th. And then, of course, as I mentioned, they lost 6-3 on April 11th and 3-0 on April 12th, before losing 7-5 to the St. Louis Blues most recently last night. We will get into that game in just a few minutes. Penguins' record at the Olympic winter break, as we went over their schedule first, was 29-15-12. St. Louis's record at the Olympic winter break, 20-28-9. The last time these 2 teams met, the record was 3-5-1 for the Blues, 7-2-1 for Pittsburgh, as Pittsburgh won the opener back on October 27, 2025. We have not quite yet seen the Pittsburgh Penguins battle the St. Louis Blues. Game time was at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 8:30 p.m. Central. And with that said, the records coming in as we move on to the St. Louis Blues April schedule in just a moment. The Blues 35-33-12. The Pittsburgh Penguins 41-24-16 heading into action. Coming out of action, the Pittsburgh Penguins finished the 2026 regular season with a record 41-25-16. That's right, they will finish the 2025-26 regular season with 98 points and a record of 41 wins, 25 losses, and 16 overtime or shootout losses. As for the St. Louis Blues, heading into their final matchup tomorrow as we are recording this at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. from Utah. They are at a record coming out of this game of 36-33-12, which means they can only finish with a different record than Pittsburgh. They can finish 37-33-12 or 36-33-13, depending on the result of the Utah Mammoth game. The April schedule. Well, it began with a bit of a blooper, I should say, for St. Louis in the opening moments of their schedule, as they lost in overtime 2-1 to the Los Angeles Kings, picked up a 6-2 victory over the Anaheim Ducks on April 3rd. So they lost on April Fool's Day, April 1st, 2026, in overtime 2-1 to the LA Kings. Beat the Anaheim Ducks on April 3rd. Also picked up another victory against the President's Trophy winners, and at the time they played the Penguins both times, the best team in the NHL, the Colorado Avalanche. That was a home and home, but the Blues won the game in Colorado, lost the game at home 3-1 on April 7th to Colorado, but they beat Colorado in Colorado on April 5th too. They also picked up an L against the Winnipeg Jets 3-2 at home. before heading on one of their final road games of the season before the game in Utah, which is this Thursday, and winning out their last homestand of the season. They would win that game in the Windy City on April 11th, 5-3 over the Chicago Blackhawks, before beating the Minnesota Wild 6-3 on Monday, April 13th, and then beating the Pittsburgh Penguins most recently last night 7-5 to tie that season series with Pittsburgh at a game apiece, where if Pittsburgh had won the game, we wouldn't see a split in the season series for 2025-2026. We would see a clean sweep of Penguins versus Blues for We are going to take a commercial break, folks. When we come back, penalties, first period to third period, scoring, first period to third period, 3 stars, all of that when we continue. And reminder that we will get to the game totals following the 3 stars before we go to our next commercial break. This is Penguins Hockey on Sports for Beginners, the podcast, and streaming on the Ice and Behind the Benches. And this is our final Penguins postgame of the regular season, part of Season 5 of Sports for Beginners, as it's Episode 6. And it's Penguins postgame, which will continue with the 3 stars, scoring, and penalties from first period to third period when we continue. Stick with us.
Don't go anywhere. There's more great conversations and content right around the corner. Sports for Beginners will be right back in a moment.
Take another look with Gerda Felix and Melanie Taddeo Malo. 2 powerful women of diverse backgrounds having genuine, unique, and uncomfortable conversations that everyone needs to have. Join Melanie and Gerda for conversations about what is missing from human connections.
Hey Allie, did you know we have a books panel?
I did not know that. When is it?
It takes place on the last Friday of each month at 7:30 p.m. Eastern.
Where we have fun and engaging conversations.
About a book that one of the panelists picks.
So, how can I learn more about the show?
To learn more, please visit bookspanel.ca. While you're there, subscribe to the newsletter so you never miss an update. Besides, it's free. Enter your email and hit subscribe.
The Books Pen is part of the Musa Slobodian Network, where good conversations happen.
To learn more about the network, please visit themusaslobodiannetwork.ca. While you're over there, hit subscribe so you never miss a network update. Enter your email and hit subscribe.
Now, let's take you back to the action. To the rink and field we go. We find Scott McGregor.
All right, welcome back, folks, to Penguins and the Blues, the topic of conversation. Welcome back to Sports for Beginners, Episode 6 of Season 5, another full audio edition of the Penguins postgame show on Sports for Beginners. Season 5, Episode 6. It's the final tune-up before the playoffs for the Pittsburgh Penguins and the St. Louis Blues. And it's time to break this one down. In case you missed it, coaching matchup for the game, Jim Montgomery versus Dan Muse. Goaltenders as we get into the hockey game from last night at Enterprise Center in St. Louis, Missouri. For Dan Muse and the Pittsburgh Penguins, he will go with Stuart Skinner getting the start between the pipes. Jordan Binnington will go for the St. Louis Blues, getting the start between the pipes for Jim Montgomery. In at backup for the St. Louis Blues is Joel Hofer, number 30. And backing things up for Pittsburgh, number 37, Shields is going to get the nod in at backup. So we had 50 versus 74 between the pipes, 30 versus 37 on the bench, if needed, for Jim Montgomery and Dan Muse, the head coaches of the Pittsburgh Penguins, which is Dan Muse, and the St. Louis Blues, which is Jim Montgomery. Alright folks, it's time to get down to business. Before we do, very, very quickly, the officials for this game at Enterprise Center in St. Louis, Missouri, Dwyer, Gord D. I'll go with Gord D. wearing the number 19 as one of our two referees. The other referee wearing the number 31 was Michael Markovic. Our officiating crew, as far as the person were concerned, they wore number 86, Jesse Marquise, and number 80 being worn by Jonathan Deschamps, Jesse Marquise, and Michael Markovic and Gord D, the referee and linesman for this game. Let's get down to business. Here we go, folks. Pens and Blues. Here we go. It began with, we're going to begin, I should say, our takers of penalties. And the first penalty of the game came at 14 minutes and 38 seconds as Pittsburgh's Elmer Zoderblom goes to the bench, 2 minutes for interference. Jake Neighbors of the St. Louis Blues able to draw the call at 14 minutes 38 seconds. In the second period, one of St. Louis's two penalties that they would take that came at 10 minutes 51 seconds. 2 minutes for roughing. Raphael Harvey Pinard able to draw the penalty for Pittsburgh at 10 minutes 51 seconds of the second period. Pittsburgh's second penalty of three penalties that they would take, one per period, would go to Anthony Mantha, a 2-minute minor to Anthony Mantha for roughing at 15 minutes and 34 seconds. Pierce Suter able to draw the call for St. Louis to go on the power play at 15 minutes 34 seconds. Dylan Holloway wraps up our penalty summary for the St. Louis Blues as Ville Kovalen draws the penalty for Pittsburgh. The penalty, by the way, went to Dylan Holloway, 2 minutes for holding. Ville Kovalen able to draw the call at 10 minutes 15 seconds. And then late in the third period, the Penguins take their third and final penalty and take the final penalty of the game, which would go to number 7 of the Pittsburgh Penguins, Ilya Solovyov, 2 minutes for holding. Alexia Torpachenko able to get the penalty, I should say, drawn on Ilya Solovyov at 19 minutes 46 seconds. In the scoring summary, 1 goal scored by the Blues in that first period of play, but the scoring was opened by the Pittsburgh Penguins as Rutger McGroarty scores his third goal of the season in the same building where he scored his first career NHL. He now has 4 goals on his NHL career, so he's got 4 goals in his career, and goal number 3 of the season after not having too great of a year right off the jump. Kevin Hayes on the assist, his third of the season. 1-0 Pittsburgh at 10 minutes and 14 seconds in the first period of play. But the Penguins weren't done there. At the 16-minute mark of the third period of play, Avery Hayes is all alone and beats Jordan Binnington to give Pittsburgh a 2-0 lead. It's 2-0 Penguins. Avery Hayes' 4th goal of the year. We'll take a look at Avery Hayes' career, his 4th goal of the year. Anthony Mantha added to the 2-0 lead with his 3rd goal of the season, making it 3-0 Pittsburgh. Kevin Hayes with his 2nd assist of the evening, 4th of the year. That goal coming at 17 minutes, 23 seconds. Blues get one back from a guy that was all over the score sheet as far as goals were concerned, and of course, maybe assists. But this guy got one back before the first period ended at 18 minutes and 44 seconds with his 20th goal of the season and first of the game. Robert Thomas on the assist, his 30th assist of the season. It's 3-1 Penguins. The Blues are on the board, but at the end of 20 minutes of play, it's Pittsburgh out in front 3-1 after 20 minutes of play. After 40, the game would be tied at 4-4 apiece, but the Penguins get a goal back and get their 3-goal lead back early second period at 2 minutes and 58 seconds with a goal by Elmer Zorderblom, his 7th goal of the season. Rookie Ben Kindle picking up an assist, his 18th of the year. Anthony Momantha, a goal already in this game. Might as well add an assist. That's number 31 on the year for Anthony Momantha, and it's 4-1 Pittsburgh. But here comes St. Louis. They rally back with 3 goals in that second period. The first off the stick of Oscar Zundqvist, his 5th goal of the season. Alexei Torpachenko, his 7th assist of the season. And Broberg, with his 27th assist of the season, gets Pittsburgh up by just 2 goals. It's 4-2 Pittsburgh, but they weren't done there. I'll just quickly bring up my notes here to make sure I have the first name pronounced here. Enterprise Center's game for Broberg, who was part of that second period first goal by St. Louis, which made it 4-2. That was Philip Broberg. Yep, there we go. Philip Broberg. Alexei Torpachenko also on the assist. 7th of the season for him. First of the game. He did not have another assist in this game, so he only had 1 assist on the game and drew a penalty. All right. That goal at 4 minutes, 51 seconds, so about 2 minutes and 51 seconds later or so. It's 4-2 Pittsburgh over the Blues. But the Blues kept coming at 10 minutes, 37 seconds of the second period. Logan Mellerude. I'm going to go with Logan M. Logan M. His 4th goal of the year. Jonathan Drouin picking up assist number 20 on the season. Jake Neighbors. 2nd assist of this is the first assist of the game for Jake Neighbors. His 20th of the season. 10 minutes, 37 seconds. So Jonathan Drouin and Jake Neighbors both picking up an assist on Logan M's 4th goal of the season. Just like that, we have a 1-goal contest. But they weren't done there. The Penguins took a penalty, which went to Anthony Mantha, and just a few seconds later after the penalty, at 15 minutes, 34 seconds, to Anthony Mantha, Jimmy Snuggerud has his 2nd goal of the game, 21st of the season, and it's 4-4. Jake Neighbors, 2nd assist of the day, his 1st of the season. Dylan Holloway getting in on the action with his 27th assist of the season. And Dylan Holloway scores the opening goal in the 3rd period. After 40 minutes, however, it was tied 4-4. In the opening minutes of the 3rd period, Dylan Holloway puts St. Louis back in front, and in front for the first time in the game with his 21st goal of the season. Jimmy Snuggerud with his 28th assist of the season. Robert Thomas, 2nd assist of the game, 39th of the year. It's 5-4 Blues, now leading. Well, wait a minute, weren't the Penguins leading 3-1 after 20? Yep, they were, but they gave up the lead middle, I should say, of the second period on the power play goal. And then the Blues never looked back after that. They would score 3 times in the 3rd period, including the goal at 4 minutes, 11 seconds by Dylan Holloway, which would give them a 1-goal lead, 5-4. But they weren't done there. A couple seconds later, at 4 minutes 55 seconds, Pavel Bushevich, his 15th goal of the season, Pavel Bushevich. I'm going to go with Pavel V. Sorry, Pavel, if I pronounced your name wrong. 19th goal of the season for Pavel. Jordan Kyrou getting in on the assist action. His 27th assist of the season. Speaking of getting in on the action, the goaltender wanted part of the action. Jordan Binnington picks up his second assist of the season. It's 6-4 St. Louis. It's a 2-goal lead now. But guess what? Avery Hayes already had a goal in this one by himself. This time he had a little help from goaltender Artur Shilovs, who was in goal at the time of this goal for Artur Shilovs' third assist of the season, and Ryan Shea picking up 1 assist in the game, which is his 29th of the year. It is 6-5 St. Louis over Pittsburgh at 12 minutes 20 seconds. So after the 4-minute 11-second goal and 4-minute 55-second goal by St. Louis, the Penguins get back within 1 as they make it 6-5 on the second goal of the game, 5th of the year, for Avery Hayes. Dylan Holloway, now with the goalie pulled later in the period. It's 6-on-5 for the Penguins later in the period. Dylan Holloway puts the puck into the empty net for his second goal of the game, 22nd of the season, Jimmy Snuggerud. And Jimmy picks up his second assist of the contest on the empty net goal, which is his 29th assist of the season. And Logan did not quite have an assist quite yet in this game, but he has a goal, might as well add an assist to this one. He picks up the secondary assist on the goal that would pretty much salt the game away at 18 minutes and 17 seconds of the third period. His 8th assist of the year, and the Blues will win. They're heading into their road season finale on Thursday in Utah. 3 stars of the game brought to you by on the Pittsburgh Penguins and St. Louis Blues radio and TV networks, respective sponsors. Same thing for the play of the game. If we had a guest on our program, they would have the graciousness of providing us with our 3 stars of the game. And just before we get to the 3 stars of the game, our shots on goal by period and for the game, just to get that out of the way to break up the shots on goal with the other game stats, which we'll get to after a quick commercial break. They were 8-5 in favor of the Penguins after the first period of play. So the Penguins outshot the Blues 8-5 after the first 20 minutes of play. They were outshot 16 after 40 minutes of play. And as a result, the Blues lead the Penguins 21-14 in the shots on goal after outshooting Pittsburgh 16-6 in the shots on goal after 40 minutes of play. For the game, Blues leading the Penguins 21-14. They would barely, the Blues would barely outshoot Pittsburgh 10-9, but ultimately end up winning the shots on goal battle 31-23, despite barely outshooting Pittsburgh 9-10. It was that close. This could be 31-24 if the Penguins got one more shot and made it 10-10 at the end of 3 periods of play. Your 3 stars, as we mentioned earlier, they are brought to you by their respective sponsors on those networks, the TV and radio network for St. Louis Blues hockey and Pittsburgh Penguins hockey. We don't have a sponsor, but we could get one down the road as we continue to cover Pittsburgh Penguins hockey. Anyways, your 3rd star went to Blues forward Oscar Zunquist. 1 goal, 1 point, no assists. Your 2nd star went to Blues forward Dylan Holloway. 2 goals, 3 points, 1 assist. And your first star might have been number 21 last night in your program, but at the end of the night, for St. Louis fans, at the end of the night, he is number 1 in your heart. Jimmy Snuggerud, 4-point night for him. Jimmy Snuggerud, number 21, 2 goals, 2 assists, 4-point night for him. Jimmy Snuggerud is your first star of the game. Jimmy Snuggerud, Dylan Holloway, and Oscar Zundquist, your 3 stars of the game. Oscar, if I pronounced your first and last name wrong, I apologize. Oscar Zundquist, hopefully I'm saying that right. Maybe I'm using the Z instead of the S, but I apologize all the same. Those were your 3 stars of the game. All right, folks, we're going to take a break. When we come back, and the shake of the game are up next. Stick with us.
Don't go anywhere. There's more great conversations and content right around the corner. Sports for Beginners will be right back in a moment.
Have you ever wanted a talk show that discusses news, politics, the show's favorite sports teams, as well as sports media and broadcasting? Check out The Ali Musa Show, where we discuss these topics in a single package. To learn more about the show, please visit thealimusashow.ca. While you're over there, subscribe to the newsletter so you never miss an update. Besides, it's free. Enter your email address and hit subscribe.
The Ali Musa Show is part of the Musa Slobodian Network, where good conversations happen. To learn more about the network, please visit themusaslobodiannetwork.ca. While you're there, subscribe so you never miss a network update. Enter your email and hit subscribe.
CNT Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down, nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on CNT Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on CNT Radio.
Now, let's take you back to the action. To the rink and field we go. We find Scott McGregor.
Welcome back, folks, to Sports for Beginners, Episode 6, Season number 5 of the program. It is the Penguins and the Blues, the topic of conversation on our final Penguins postgame of the 2025. It is also their series finale for Penguins and the Blues. Penguins won the opener back on October 27th, 25, but the Blues get the win at home at Enterprise Center, 7-5. It was a wild game, but the Blues get the win at home, just like the Penguins got the win at home by a final score of 6-3. A game that absolutely needed to have, even though it was earlier in the year. You'd like to think, even though the Penguins did clinch the playoffs before coming into this game, if they didn't clinch the playoffs at that point, then this game would definitely have been one of the tone setters that would say, you have to get this game, because if it became what it was last night, which was a game that, well, many people would say doesn't matter. It's a meaningless game. I mean, every game pretty much matters. So let's just say the Penguins didn't clinch the playoffs. Let's just say they didn't. Let's just say theoretically they didn't. They would have needed this win to clinch the postseason. Now, would they have clinched home ice? Probably not, considering they wouldn't be second in the Metropolitan Division, which I'm very happy that they are. I would have preferred being a Metropolitan Division champion, but let the games fall where they may. The important thing is Penguins hockey is returning to the Berg, and it is also returning to Philadelphia in the 8th playoff meeting between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia in what we call the Battle of PA, or rather the Battle of Pennsylvania. Stanley Cup playoffs. 2026 Stanley Cup playoffs will begin in Pittsburgh this weekend, with the 8th meeting of the Battle of PA beginning the 2026 Stanley Cup playoff run for the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Philadelphia Flyers. But we'll talk about that more in a bit. We got a lot to get to still from this game from Enterprise Center, and we're going to kick it off with, before we get to the play of the game and the scoreboard, which we will get to before the break, the next break of the program. Before we get to the play of the game, let's run down the rest of the stats, minus the shots on goal, which we did already, by period. For this game saw 57 face-offs, and the Blues won 26 of those 57 face-offs, for a face-off percentage of about 46%, given they had 45.6% at the end of the game, according to NHL.com's Game Center. Pittsburgh winning 31 of the 57 face-offs for a face-off percentage of 54.4%, almost 55%, but they were definitely a little bit better in the face-off dot than St. Louis was. St. Louis was better on the PK, going 2 for 2 against Pittsburgh's penalty kill, which did not score on their 2 penalty power play opportunities, but the Penguins go 2 for 3 on the PK with 2 penalties killed off, and the penalty that was not killed off led to the only power play goal of the game and second goal of the game for Jimmy Snuggerud, who made it 4-4 at 15 minutes, 49 seconds. That was the tying goal and the only goal that St. Louis would score, making their power play 33.3% good, and in total, 1 for 3 on the power play. The Penguins 0 for 2 on the power play, 2 for 3 on the PK. St. Louis 1 for 3 on the power play, 2 for 2 on the PK. The Penguins spent 6 minutes in the penalty box. The St. Louis Blues, 4 minutes spent in the penalty box. Penguins were out-hit by St. Louis 20-15. They have a little bit of revenge of the blocked shots. Only 4 block shots were more by the St. Louis Blues, beating the Penguins in block shots 14-10. The Penguins had 21 giveaways to St. Louis's 15 giveaways. The Blues finishing the game with 4 takeaways, and the Penguins finishing up with 7 takeaways. Quickly here, before we do go to the play of the game, let's go ahead and take a look at our scoreboard on Tuesday night. 9 games on the slate, and 1 shutout of the night, which will belong to the Boston Bruins, who beat the New Jersey Devils in shutout fashion 4-0 in their home finale and season finale as they prepare for the postseason. Also picking up a victory in their finale was the Carolina Hurricanes, the Metropolitan Division champion Carolina Hurricanes, who beat the New York Islanders 2-1 over in Philadelphia, the team that will face the Pittsburgh Penguins in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. The Philadelphia Flyers picked up a 4-2 victory over the Montreal Canadiens. In Columbus, Ohio, the Washington Capitals picked up a 2-1 victory over the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Anaheim Ducks fall 3-2 to the Minnesota Wild. The Utah Mammoth, who will see the St. Louis Blues on Thursday, beat the Winnipeg Jets 5-3 in Utah. The Calgary Flames playing the Colorado Avalanche, the President's Trophy winners, by the way, and they fell 3-1 to the Avalanche in Calgary, but Blake Coleman was one of the scorers in that 3-1 loss to the Avalanche. And last but certainly not least, one game that went into overtime on the Tuesday slate, that would be the Vancouver Canucks picking up the overtime winner over the Los Angeles Kings. 4-3 your final. The game-winning goal went to former Bruin Jake DeBrusk, his third goal of the season. He got the overtime winner 2 minutes and 58 seconds into overtime for Vancouver over the Los Angeles Kings. As a result, folks, of games played on Tuesday night, with 2 days left, including the games tonight on April 15th. 6 games tonight, 6 games tomorrow. But as a result of what has happened, here are the Eastern Conference. Yes, you heard me. Here are the Eastern Conference matchups in the National Hockey League this season. The Eastern Conference playoff matchups are the Carolina Hurricanes versus the Ottawa Senators. It's the division champ, Metro champs, Carolina Hurricanes versus the second wild card in the Eastern Conference, Ottawa Senators. The number 2 and number 3 seed in the Metropolitan Division will take on each other this weekend. And those are the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Philadelphia Flyers. The other Atlantic and wildcard matchup is the Buffalo Sabres and the Boston Bruins. So it's the Tampa Bay Lightning versus the Montreal Canadiens, the Buffalo Sabres versus the Boston Bruins, the Philadelphia Flyers versus the Pittsburgh Penguins, and the Carolina Hurricanes versus the Ottawa Senators. Those are your Eastern Conference 2026 Stanley Cup playoff first round matchups. Well, we still have to know who is going to be in those matchups. One matchup we do know that will happen, and it has been brought up by the NHL before. We will see the Dallas Stars and the Minnesota Wild in the Stanley Cup playoffs going head to head. We will have the Los Angeles Kings versus the Colorado Avalanche, the Utah Mammoth versus the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Anaheim Ducks versus the Edmonton Oilers. By the way, those matchups have been confirmed with every team I mentioned that has an X to their name. So, the Western Conference playoff picture of Anaheim. In the Eastern Conference, we have the Buffalo Sabres taking on the Boston Bruins, the Tampa Bay Lightning taking on the Montreal Canadiens, the Ottawa Senators taking on the Carolina Hurricanes, and the Pittsburgh Penguins battling the Philadelphia Flyers. All right, folks, time for the play of the game. Penguins versus Flyers. We will let you know the final game on the schedule for the St. Louis Blues. And in between doing that, we will give you St. Louis as well as Pittsburgh's Shake of the Game and Game Puck of the Game recipients. Episode 6, Season 5 is on the air and nearing the closing moments. How will the Blues wrap up the 20-plus Flyers Penguins preview for the Stanley Cup playoffs coming up when we continue? But before we go to break, play of the game for me, goal that really put the Penguins on their heels. That goal at 15 minutes, 49 seconds after the Penguins took a penalty. That second goal of the game by Jimmy Snuggerud is really going to be good enough for my play of the game. And I feel like the Penguins, when Logan and maybe Oscar Sundqvist scored, but definitely when Oscar Sundqvist scored to make it 4-2, by the way, I think that kind of woke the Penguins up a little bit, going giddy up, let's go, because eventually, as you see by the final score, the Blues never let go of the lead, even though the Penguins got one back when it was 6-5 Blues over Penguins. So Let me know what you think. A link in the description of this episode will be provided for updates, or rather highlights from this game, so that you can have a watch and get ready for the postseason if you're a Penguins fan, or get ready for Thursday night's game. But by the time you hear this, if you're a Blues fan, you're probably already getting ready for Mammoth versus Blues on Thursday. But that's okay. We'll take a break. When we come back, who's up for the Blues? Game puck of the game. Who's up for the Penguins? Game puck of the game. Who's up for both teams' shake of the games? And who do the Blues wrap up the 2025-2026 NHL regular season with? Plus, Flyers, Penguins, preview of the Stanley Cup playoffs, all when episode 6, season 5 of Sports for Beginners, and the final Penguins postgame of the 2025-2026 regular season wraps up. Don't miss this last little bit. And the St. Louis Blues wrapping things up in the season series. They tie that series 2 games to, a game apiece, with St. Louis winning 7-5.
Don't go anywhere. There's more great conversations and content right around the corner. Sports for Beginners will be right back in a moment.
Have you ever wondered about the books we've been reading throughout the week?
Are you looking for friendly banter and technology tips at the same time?
Then you've come to the right place.
Check out The Allie and McCara Show. It airs live on Sunday afternoons at 3:30 p.m. Eastern.
Until spring. In the spring, we'll switch back to Mondays.
To learn more about the show, please visit theallieandmccarashow.ca.
While you're there, subscribe to the newsletter so you never miss an update. And besides, it's free.
Enter your email address and hit subscribe.
The Allie and McCara Show is part of the Musa Slobodian Network, where good conversations happen.
To learn more about the network, please visit themusaslobodiannetwork.ca.
Enter your email and hit subscribe so you never miss network updates.
Take another look with Gerda Felix and Melanie Taddeo Malo, 2 powerful women of diverse backgrounds having genuine, unique, and uncomfortable conversations that everyone needs to have. Join Melanie and Gerda for conversations about what is missing from human connections.
Now, let's take you back to the action. To the rink and field we go. We find Scott McGregor.
Welcome back, folks, to episode 6 of season 5 of Sports for Beginners, the podcast. I'm your lovely host, Scott McGregor. Welcome back in to our viewers on the Ice and Behind the Benches, and listeners. You can catch both this episode and the last episode on the Ice and Behind the Benches. That's why we are welcoming those folks back as well. It's the closing moments of the episode where we would normally do last call. But as this is a post-game show, we have just 2 segments to go as they are part of this last break that we just took, as we continue to get you set up for the Penguins versus the Flyers. The Battle of PA for the 8th time in franchise history between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia returns to the playoffs. This historic Battle of PA rivalry returns starting this weekend. But before we get to that, we gotta wrap things up here with the game at Enterprise Center. So we're gonna start off with our schedule for the St. Louis Blues, which will wrap up tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Time as the Blues take on the Mammoth, the Utah Mammoth. That is at 2 p.m. Central Time as well. And that is indeed the last game of the year for the St. Louis Blues. Rapid fire here with their recipients of the shake of the game and the game puck of the game. Shake of the game, more like shake of the season, since we won't be talking about the Blues for a little while here on our Penguins hockey coverage. That's going to go to their puck stopper, Jordan Binnington, who I thought had a really nice game. Okay, yeah, he gave up 5 goals in the game. Both are at even strength, all are at even strength rather, but he still played a pretty good 60 minutes. Were they great? No, not by any stretch of the imagination. They weren't great, but they weren't that terrible either. And his save percentage, by the way, was .783. He made 18 saves on 23 shots, and that's why he is going to get their shake of the season, shake of the game rather. But their game puck of the game and game puck of the season from this game, well, that's going to go to Mr. 4-point night, Jimmy Snuggerud. 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points, a +2, 21 shifts, 1 power play goal, 3 shots on goal. There was really nothing Jimmy Snuggerud wasn't really doing. He was all over the ice, both in shots, in blocks, hits. Yes, he had a couple of giveaways, 6 to be exact, but I still feel like Jimmy played a really nice game. He played a real nice game. And he also racked up 1 takeaway in 16 minutes and 40 seconds of total ice time. How about them Penguins? About to begin a best of 7 series with their Penn State rivals, the Philadelphia Flyers, this weekend. Well, the game puck of the game is going to go to Penguins' 2-time goal scorer and rookie, Lil Hayes, Avery Hayes. 2 goals on the game for him, 2 points, no assists for him. He had 18 shifts, 3 shots on goal, no power play goals for him, 1 block, 2 hits in 13 minutes and 48 seconds of ice time. He was a +1. He also picked up 1 block, 2 hits, 1 giveaway, 1 takeaway, and he didn't really see the face-off that much. But neither did Jimmy Snuggerud. Shake of the game, that's going to go to Avery Hayes. Game puck of the game was going to go to Avery Hayes. Shake of the game, well, that's going to go to Stuart Skinner. Now, I know that Stuart was pulled after 40 minutes of play. I did hear a little bit about what led into that decision, but I'll have to re-listen to Dan Muse after the game to get a clearer understanding about why he made the move from Stuart to Artur Shilovs in the 3rd period of play. But I still thought Stuart played pretty well. 21 shots against, 17 saves, 4 goals given up, 1 on the power play, 3 at even strength. And he had a pretty good save percentage, by the way, with a save percentage of .810 in 40 minutes played. Not exactly ideal, but I'll take it. And of course, Artur Shilovs had to come into the game and played 17 minutes 30 seconds. Ended the game with a save percentage of .778. 2 goals given up at even strength. Made 7 saves on 9 of the final 31 shots both goalies would face. But of course, I should say the final 30 shots that both goalies would face, because shot number 31 went in to an empty net. All that being said, Avery Hayes and Stuart Skinner, game puck and shake of the game for the Pittsburgh Penguins. The game puck of the game for the St. Louis Blues to Jordan Binnington. The shake of the game to Mr. 4-point night, Jimmy Snuggerud. He had a really nice day and a really nice night. There really wasn't anything to give me any sense of the imagination that I shouldn't consider him for shake of the game or game puck of the game. The St. Louis Blues will wrap up their season on the road in Utah against the Utah Mammoth at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, and as per venue time, which will be in Utah, that is, game time will be 5:30 p.m. Mountain Time per venue, which also makes that 4:30 p.m. Pacific Time. All things considered, the Pittsburgh Penguins head back home as their season is over. However, it may be over. It may be over, but the fun season and the season that matters all the same, because there's a big trophy on the line for the first time since 2022, the last time the Penguins were in the postseason. By the way, that season begins this weekend against the Philadelphia Flyers. And speaking of the Philadelphia Flyers, the Pittsburgh Penguins will renew that rivalry in the postseason this weekend. When will they play? In the first round of the playoffs? Will it be Sunday? Will it be Saturday? We don't know yet, but we will know by the end of these final 2 days, tonight and tomorrow, as we record this program. One thing we do know is that the big three most likely will be on the roster heading into that first round matchup between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Philadelphia Flyers. And those big three are number 71, Evgeny Malkin. Number 87, your captain of the Penguins, Sidney Crosby. And number 58, Christopher Letang. Those three men will be in the lineup, or rather on the roster. Also on the roster from the 2022 Eastern Conference first round exit, adding into those forwards, bring up the returns of number 17, Brian Rust, and number 67. Who else will be joining the Penguins as forwards for this roster? Number 55, Noel Achari. Looks like he will be joining the roster, along with number 15, what his number is. But anyways, moving on. You'll also see Igor Chinikov, Connor Duard, Avery Hayes, and Kevin Hayes, Philip Hollander, Ben Kindle, Blake Lizotte, Anthony Mantha, Tommy Novak, Ricard Raquel, and Elmer Zorderblom. On defense, joining Christopher Letang, we've got Connor Clifton, Samuel Girard, Ryan Graves, Eric Carlson, Christopher Letang, as I mentioned, Ryan Shea, the rookie, Jake Leonovich, who made his NHL debut in this hockey game from Phoenix, Arizona, by the way, and is an undrafted free agent that signed a 2-year entry-level contract on April 10th. 5 days ago, we also have joining the defense pairing, Ryan Shea, Ilya Solovyov, Jack St. Ivany, and Parker Witherspoon, and the goaltenders, Stuart Skinner, and Archer Shilovs. That's what the roster looks like for the Penguins, but we won't know until they officially announce it, who made the team, who is in the system, if needed, but that's what the roster looks like when you break down the roster, and it looks like a pretty good roster. I'm definitely certain that Sid, Gino, Tanger, and guys that were in the 2022 team and have remained with the team, I'm fairly certain they will make the postseason roster, because you can't spell playoffs without the big three, Sid, Gino, and Tanger. And there we go. I'm looking at the team roster now, and yep, Justin Brazeau is indeed number 16. So we shall see what the Penguins do with their playoff roster, and we shall see what kind of roster Rick Tocchet puts out for the Philadelphia Flyers. Folks, it has been a thrill ride with you over these 82 games, now eventually going into 84 games, but we will see how long the Penguins' playoff run goes. It begins with a defensive opponent, a divisional opponent, I should say, in the Philadelphia Flyers this weekend. Still waiting on the timing of Game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Or for some early thoughts, first of all, when you look back at the season series between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, I feel like this series is going to come down to who has a lot of fire in the tank to get their team to the postseason. I feel like Philadelphia-Pittsburgh is going to be a wild series, and I feel like it's going to go 7 games. I really feel like it's going to come down to who can win that all-important game that will send you to the second round. I don't think this is going to go 4 games in favor of the Penguins. I feel like this could go Penguins in 7, Penguins in 6, maybe Flyers in 6, maybe Flyers in 7. I don't think this series wraps up rather in 5. But with that said, folks, the season series was tied 2-2 for the regular season, with Philadelphia picking up the victory on March 7th, 4-3, to end the season series in Pittsburgh in a shootout. They also picked up a victory in Philadelphia, 3-2 in the shootout, and then Pittsburgh picked up a victory both in Pittsburgh and in Philadelphia, 5-1 and 6-3. Those were on December 1st and January 15th. But I feel like this is going to come down to who is got the strength and the courage to win the all-important game, even though every game is important, because the goal to advance in the postseason is to win the playoff matchup. And I know Penguins fans, we're going to be wanting Pittsburgh to win more than ever. In other words, we're going to be wanting the west side of Pennsylvania to beat the east side more than ever. So I'll leave you with this as we honor Mike Lang to close out our program and our 6th episode of season 5 of the podcast. Great season in the regular season. We ended the game on a high note with a nice win over the Devils. Would have loved to get a win in Mike Lang's traditional Night Owl Club over the St. Louis Blues. But I feel like there's a lot to feel good about, even though you lost that game and you lost the 2 previous games, one at home and one on the road against division rivals Washington Capitals. But nothing but respect for Ovi and the Capitals. And if Alex Ovechkin does return next season, that means we got another chapter of a long historic rivalry between Sid and Alex Ovechkin. And I would really like to see that. But if this is indeed Alex's final year, wish you nothing but the best, Alex. This has been a great year, and I can't wait for the postseason. Good thing, Penguins fans, we only have to wait till the schedule comes out, and then we can get ready for the Flyers. So stay tuned to our Facebook page when we will be doing a Penguins post-game show for the playoffs. We'll also monitor timing that we have with the Toronto Blue Jays. We haven't really brought Blue Jays game recap back yet, but we could have it back very, very shortly. And I want to thank all the hockey fans for tuning in all year long for as many of these games as we could do. Even if we didn't get them out right away, please be patient with us as we try to get as many of these games out and recapped as possible. With that said, the Pittsburgh Penguins fall 7-5 to the St. Louis Blues in front of 18,096 fans in attendance at Enterprise Center for the final game at home of the 2025-2026 regular season for the St. Louis Blues, and the regular season finale for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and road finale, rather, as the Penguins prepare for the Stanley Cup playoffs and the St. Louis Blues prepare for a showdown with the Utah Mammoth before their offseason officially begins. Enjoy the hockey games, everybody. Penguins fall 7-5 to the St. Louis Blues, who tie the season series. Now the Penguins have got to get ready for an entirely new season and a renew of the rivalry in the postseason against the Philadelphia Flyers. The Battle of PA, Chapter 8 of the playoffs, begins this weekend. Will it begin Saturday? Will it begin Sunday? We don't know. All we know is it begins this weekend, and it would begin one of those days. We shall see when it begins. To honor the great Mike Lang as we close up the program, ladies and gentlemen, Justin Brazeau has just left the building. That's going to do it for us here on Penguins Postgame. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to catch up with you real soon. But until then, Penguins fans, always remember that we cheer loud and proud for the black and gold. saying, "Let's go Pens." And to honor Mike Lang, ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has just left the building. See you next time, Penguins fans. Pens and Flyers, Stanley Cup playoffs, next time on Penguins Postgame. And on the next episode of Sports for Beginners, the podcast, baseball season is in full swing. How are the Buccos doing? How are the Blue Jays doing? What kind of craziness have we had over the course of the opening weeks of the season? Find out on episode 7 of season 5. That is it for this one. And that is it for Penguins post-game regular season hockey on our season coverage. We'll see you in the playoffs, Pens fans.
Thank you so much for listening to Sports for Beginners. If you would like to learn more about the show, you can visit the podcast Facebook page or visit the official website. You can also send us an email at sportsforbeginnerspodcast 8231@gmail.com. As we always remind you, it is not goodbye, it is until next time.